Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. How
Good
was
evening.
the week? Hope our week was good.
What's good? Is it testing now? Where's my bag? Let me bring my phone out. The earpiece.
For those that are used to coming to class late, but today, by the time they will come, we would have gone far because we'll be starting right away. We won't be waiting for anybody. Okay, so uh, I'm aware that a few people were just added during the week, but I'm told the number is very small, around maybe 5 or so. Okay, so if this is your first class, not that you were available last week and missed the class, so like you were just added, this is your first class. Please, can you just, in the chat area, just let me know. First class. Can just type first class. Today is your first class, not that you missed last class, like you were added within the week. Okay, Kelvin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 6, 7. Please, did you people hear me? I say, not that you missed the previous class because you were not able to attend. Like you were added this week to the, those are the people I'm interested in. Okay, okay. That is good. So usually people from last week, I think it was just due to one thing or the other that you were added to this class. So, well, you've not missed much. We just had one class, that's Friday and Saturday last week. It was just an introduction class. The video for that class, the replay for that class is in the group. After this class, someone should just remind me in the group. We'll drop the recording for that class so that we can go through it. Then if you still have any issue after going through it and you were added this week, please reach out to me. I'll make out time specially to sort out whatever issue you have. Because I'm trying to avoid having to go back to what we did so that we can move forward. And what we did, honestly, were just basics, elementary things. So I feel like if you go through the video, you shouldn't have any issue with what we did. But however, if you go through the video and you have any issue, please reach out to me. Okay, so for those joining new, let me introduce myself again. So my name is AK, Mr. AK. So I'm putting it into the chat area now. So my name is Mr. AK. Okay, so that is it. That's my name. And my phone number, my personal phone number that you can reach me with is this. So putting it also into the chat area. So please, as a member of this class, you should have my number saved on your phone for any sort of emergency that may arise. So if you don't, you have an opportunity again today. Please, this is my personal number, and I always prefer WhatsApp. So if you have to reach out to me, WhatsApp will be better. Just chat me up, and whatever it is, you take it up from there. Okay. So last week we did quite a lot. So let me open our course outline. So we introduced, so let me share my screen now. So I want to believe everyone can see my screen now. Please, can we all see my screen? Okay, so last week we started by doing an overview of what data analytics is all about. I remember talking about data analysis in-depthly. Also, we looked at the importance of data analytics. We also looked at the types. And after that, we also tried to look at the difference between data analytics and data science, which we said is always a concept that gets most people confused. So we also try to demystify that concept. Then after that, another thing we tried to do was we now introduced the subject matter of Excel. So I remember saying in this course, the data analytics course, it basically has three different parts. The first part is the Excel part. The next part is the Power BI part. And then the last part is the SQL part. So we say the Excel part is actually the longest part of the course. So there's a whole lot in that part. And this is the part where you're dealing with formulas, where you're dealing with so many other things, even down to dashboards and all of that. Then for the Power BI part, you're basically dealing with visualizations. So everything around Power BI is majorly around visualization. Then for the SQL part, you're dealing with the database, your interaction with the database. So how do you save data in the database? How do you retrieve data from the database? How do you correct data in the database? All of this. So that is all what SQL is about, is your interaction with the database. Okay. And then after I've said all of that, I also remember I introduced Excel. We opened the Excel window where we talked about the different things in the Excel window. We talked about the tabs, we talked about cells, columns, rows, and all of that, workbook, worksheets, a whole lot. We did that. And then, so I totally believe we covered everything here. So talked about workbook, how to create one, how to rename one, and all of that. How to insert rows and column, we did that. How to insert worksheet, we did that. Deleting rows and column, we did that. Hiding and unhiding of rows, we also did that. Merging cells, we did that. Freezing and unfreezing, locking and unlocking of a worksheet. Then all of this we did in our last class. And I want to believe everybody is good to that part. I believe every one of us is in class right now. So I just don't understand some of us. You know I'm in class, and I'm sure that person is even in this class. And yet you're calling my line. I dropped my number and you're calling it when you know we are all in class. Eh? Am I supposed to pause the class to take your call? Sometimes I just don't understand how some people, if you want to call me, I say WhatsApp, even if you will feel like calling, will you wait at least after the class? Okay, so after that, we moved on to formulas. I could remember that was, I think, on the second day, being on the Saturday, where we started basic formulas. We did addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Then we also used sum, product. We did count, count say, count blank. We did max and we did mean. So last week, we were all able to cover up to this point. And we said this week that we will be starting with the logical functions. So I remember somebody asking, yes, Richie, the class is for those just starting. I've addressed that issue. Yes, I've addressed that issue already. So these were the class we had last week. Everything I'm talking about here, we did it last week. So it's just quite, will I call it, circumstances that added you people to this class. This was actually not supposed to be the class you would join. You were supposed to wait for the next cohort, but as situations would have it, it's just one class you've missed. So I've said after this class, the recording for that class will be dropped. It was just an introductory class. All of these things here, by the time you watch this thing, you'd find out they were all very basic. And then I've also said, if in the course of going through it, you have any issue, please reach out to me. So it's even very important that all of you watch the replay from last week. That was Friday and Saturday, because I don't want to start repeating all of our ground rules for this class. By watching those replay, you also hear everything, so that everybody here should be aware of our rules here. Okay. So moving forward, we said today we're going to start with the logical functions, which is this part. So we said we would do something around if, around nested if, around ifs, absolute self-reference, relative, and mix. So let's see how far we can go. If you can even enter statistical functions, that would also be lovely. Okay, so for if, let me do a brief introduction. So logical functions. So logical functions, we say in Excel, are used to, okay. So we say logical functions in Excel are used to perform logical tests and return results, whether the test evaluates a true or false answer. So when you use logical functions in Excel, you're trying to test certain logics to return certain answers. So these answers most times are grouped into a true or a false category. So is either true or is false, but not in all cases though. So there are some cases where you have multiples of those outcomes, not just true or false. Okay, so we say they are essential for decision-making processes and for data analysis. So what's going to be the first logical function we'll be looking at? It's going to be the if statement. The if statement. So we say the if statement or the if function in Excel is the cornerstone of conditional logic. It is the cornerstone of conditional logic. It evaluates a condition and returns one value if the condition is true and another value if it's false. So think of it as a simple decision-making process within your spreadsheet. For example, you could use an if statement to automatically assign a pass or fail grade based on a student's score. So we say the basic syntax for the if function is as follows. So the moment you hit your equals to if, it comes up with this syntax. So the first thing there you have is your logical test. After the logical test, you give it the value if true, and then after that, you give it the value if false. So let's use practical things to dismantle all of this grammar that we've been hearing. Okay, so now let's say this was the data set we were working with or we used last week where we were trying to create this. I showed us how to do something like this. And I want to believe a few of us were able to replicate this. How many of us replicated this record or this data? If you did, please let me know. Okay, Emmanuel did. Was it only Emmanuel? Okay, Tunde did. Melitus did. Okay. Okay. So I want to believe all these I did. It's actually true. Okay. So if you all did as I'm seeing here, that is lovely. That means some of us are really actually here for business. Okay. And let me also say, if you're here and your this thing has not peaked yet, then I think you're not doing yourself any good. Because at this point, you should actually have developed or how will I even put it? You should have developed so much interest for this course that when simple things are given for us to do, you feel the urge and the anxiety to be a part of it. Okay. So please, when things are given and I ask you to do it, just do it. It's for your own good. Just like the assignment we did last week. It was not in any way meant to punish anyone. It was just for our own good. Because today or sometime we could just be talking, I'll say, okay, we'll go to this. If you don't know where that very function is or where that ribbon is, you'll be lost because you don't even know the tab to click on to get that function or that ribbon. So please, anything we do here is for our own benefit. Okay, going back to if. So we said the if formula or the if function is used to test logical conditions. So we check if a condition is met, and if that condition is met, we give it a true value. But if not, we give it a false value. So let's say in this exam now, after the students have done this exam, this is their names, the scores, and everything. We've even had our total that we did last week. That's using sum and using addition. Okay, so now we want to, let's say we want to do a remark now. So let's call this remark. So for this remark, what we want to do is we want to remark those that passed and those that failed. So some persons here are going to pass and some are going to fail. So now, when you're using the if function or the if formula, you're just testing a logic, and that logic comes up with two outcomes. Either that logic is true or that logic is false. So in this case now, I'm going to test a logic. What will be the logic? I want some people to have a remark of pass and some to have a remark of fail. But I have to give Excel the basis for that. So that basis now that I'm using, or that yardstick, is what I'm going to interpret into my logic. So for this very example, let's say I'm going to say every student in this exam that scored above, okay, 50 and above, every student in this exam that scored 50 and above should have passed or should have a remark of pass. But anybody below 50 should have a remark of fail. So now that is what I want to do. That is this statement I just said is what I want to convert into my logic and test it using the if formula. So how am I going to do this? I'll say equals to, remember our ground rule last week, where I said if you want to make use of a formula or you want to perform any function, the first thing you have to do is to hit the equals to sign. The moment you hit the equals to sign, Excel is placed on a ladder. Okay, whatever is coming next is something that will derive me performing a function on in order to return an output. Okay, so in this case, equals to, and I'm using the formula if. You can see there if. So I say when you see your formula, if it has been selected, like in this case, I've seen it, I come, I select. So it will bring it up. I either double click on it here, or I just use the tab button on my keyboard. If I press the tab button, you can see. So the moment you bring the formula up, the formula is active now. So under it, you're going to see what we call syntax. So this syntax is meant to guide you on the usage of this formula. The syntax is meant to guide you on how this formula is used. And you could remember last week, we established that certain elements within the formula, you'd always see them in square bracket. Like now, value if true, value if false. You can see they are in square bracket. And I remember saying that whenever you see some commands or some functions in the syntax in square bracket, what that means is that those very functions are optional. They are optional because I can choose to ignore them and my formula would still be correct. Okay, as far as I know what I'm doing, let me add that. For somebody say if you ignore your formula will be correct. It's as far as you know what you're doing. So you know what you're doing, you don't need it. But if not, you need to do everything. Okay, so now what will be my logic? The first thing here on the syntax is my logical test. So what will be my logic here? My logical test. My logical test here is going to be, remember I said I want every student in this exam that had a total of 50 and above to be passed, as in the remark should be passed. But those below 50, that the remark should be failed. That's what I'm looking for. So translating that statement into a logic, I'm going to say, remember I'm using the first total score so that I can do a drag down for everybody under it. Remember what we talked about yesterday when we were talking about cell reference. So we say you have to reference cell so that Excel can see your movement and repeat that movement for every other person. Okay, so now what I've just told Excel is, if this total score here, remember is the if formula we are using. So in reality, what I'm just saying is, if this total score here is greater than or equals to, if this very score here is greater than or equals to 50, remember we said 50 and above. So that means somebody that scored 50 would also be in the category of pass, or anything below 50 is in fail. So I'm now saying if this score here is greater than or equals to 50, so I'll hit my comma there. So that's the end of my logical test. Then it will now ask me, what is the value if this logic is true? That's my value if true. So if this logic is true, what value do you want me to return? So in this case, the value I want it to return is, now let me say something here. Anytime you're putting in values into Excel, there's a rule you must observe. So if your value, somebody said I'm breaking, please, is my network breaking? Let me be sure is from the person's part. Please, am I loud and clear? Am I audible? Okay, okay. So the person that said is breaking, please, it's from your end. Because others said I am very audible. Okay, please, let's move on. Thank you for that feedback. So now what I've said here is, I've told Excel that if this score is greater than or equals to 50, that's when my logical test ends. I say comma. Now I'm going to give it a value. If this logic is true, what should be the value? And I said one rule we should observe is, if you're entering a value in Excel and the value you want to enter is in a form of a text, if that value is in a form of a text, then you must always make sure that that value is put into double quotation, open and close. But if the value is a number, for example, I want to say these people that scored greater than or equals to 50, you should put those one, you should just write 1 for those ones. Then people that scored less than that, you should write 2 for them. Maybe that's the remark I want, 1 and 2, so that I know those are that are in 1 and those are. Because the value in that case is a number, I don't need to use double quotation, open and close. But in as much as my value is a text, it's not just in the if formula. In any formula in Excel that you're making use of, anytime your value is in a text, you must always put it in double quotes, open, and at the end, you close. So in this case, I'm going to say, if this statement is true, you should give that person pass. So you see, that's my truth. I also need to close this. So double quotes, open and close. The moment I hit my comma, it moves to the next one, which is value if false. So it's now telling me, okay, this is for those that meet this logic. How about those that does not meet this? So I'll now say another double quotes open, and I'll say give those ones fail. I also close my double quotes. So this is the end of this formula. But because it's a formula, it always starts with an open bracket. So at the end of it, you must always remember to close your bracket. Then I hit enter. The moment I hit enter, you can see the remark for this first person. This person failed. Why did this person fail? Because this score is not up to 50. Because we said for anybody to pass, it must be 50 and above. So now let's run this down for others and see. So you can see immediately I run this down for others. You can see. So everybody that meets that logic or that criteria, you can see this person scored 63. This is a pass. 34. This is a fail. 65. This is a pass. You can see 49. 49 is a fail because it's not up to 50. 71 pass, and so on and so forth. You can check it down. So it has interpreted that logic, and whoever meets that logic, it returns the true value, which is pass. And whoever does not meet that logic, it returns the false value, which is fail. So remember, this value, I imputed it. So that value can be anything. I can decide to use anything as that value. And that, of course, is also what is going to return for me. Okay. So I want to believe this is quite easy. This is quite simple. So I want to believe we can move on. Okay, so before we move on, let me do one more example with if, just to reduce the number of questions that will be waiting for me. Okay, so now I'm still going to use this same score to test my logic. So if this score is greater than or equals to, this time should I shift it up? Okay, let me leave it there. Greater than or equals to 50, comma. My value if true this time, see my double quote open, I want to use promoted. So those that scored 50 and above, you should just write promoted for them. Close my double quotes, hit my comma, then my value if false now. I want to use repeat. My value if false, that's whoever does not score up to 50, should just write repeat for the person. So now I'm done. I'll close my bracket and I'll hit enter. So immediately you can see this very student will repeat because did not meet the, and if I run this down, you can see there. So at every point, the remark that will be given is the value that I have determined in that formula. Okay. So I want to believe everyone is clear to this point because I've tried as much as I can to make sure it's clear now. Please, I did not get 13. Somebody is asking, where did you get 13 from? Please, that is not 13. What you're seeing as 13 there is this cell address I3. This is cell I3, where I selected this from. So you can see I3. So it's telling us that the value in I3. So we are referencing this cell so that Excel can do the same for every other person. So remember what we said last week, that if you want Excel to move, then you have to show it how to move for it to move for you. Okay, so now the next one we want to do, let's call this grades. So let's call this grades. So now we want to perform a grading for everybody. So because this is grade, let's call this course. Okay. Let me try to make it so that, okay, let's call this course, and let's call this grades. So now, here's a different scenario. It's different because in this scenario now, I'm trying to now categorize them into different categories. I'm trying to categorize them into different categories. So some people in this exam are going to score A, that have a grade of A. Some are going to have a grade of B. Some will have C. Some will have D. Some will have E. And then some will come up with F. So these are the different grades. Then for the score that will qualify them for these grades. I'm getting a lot of feedback around somebody said my this thing is echoing. What's the issue here? So please, can you people stop distracting us, those that are complaining? Because obviously it's from your network, because others here in the class are saying the network is very okay from their own end. So it cannot be from my own. So please check your network. You can see, thank God is in the chat. At least you can also see. So please, it's from your end. So please stop distracting us. Okay, let's move on. So if the network is bad or you're not getting me clearly, just check your network and check your audio device also. Okay, so for those that will score A, let's keep our A for students that scored in this exam from 70 to 100. And let's say our B students are those that scored from 60 to 69. And then our C students are those that scored from 50 to 59. Our D students are those that scored from 40 to 49. 40 to 49. And then our E students, let's just pity them, 30 to 39. And then finally our F student, those are scored from 0 to 29. Those are the F students. Okay, so looking at this, we can see the categories, the different categories that we have. Let somebody tell me, is there any category that is not in this our range? Is there any score we've missed out, or maybe we've repeated that score in two different categories? So someone should help us check. Someone should help check. Is there any score like that? Is there any score like that? Okay. Somebody should help check. Is there anything like that? Okay, okay, okay. Okay, all scores are taken care of. Okay, so I think this is fine. Okay, so there should be from because we affect the result gotten from if. Okay, I'm a bit confused with this person's comment. Okay, so for those, a security report reaching me now is that those joining the class today, they are complaining on the group that they don't understand what we are doing. That is a bit that they are lost. Please, nobody is lost. All I just said is after this class, what we did last week is just one this thing you missed. So what we did last week, the video will be dropped. And then if I even need to do a makeup for you people to explain it, I don't mind. But rather than having to go and start all over and start doing the introduction again, the video is at least you can ask those in the class. It's as good as you being in the live class. That's just the truth. If I even still said after that, if you have issues, reach out to me. So I don't know what the issue still is. What we are doing here today is not so strange or something. Is today we're actually starting anything serious. Last week, all we're doing were elementary things. Okay, moving on. So please, we should try and be calming down. Okay, you just want to put this into a border. Okay. So this is what we are using. This is the criteria for any of this grade. And now we want to grade these students as it stands now. We want to grade these students. So let's see how we can do that. But you cannot do that with if that we just used to do this. That's because there's a limitation to if. We remember we said if can only do a statement that you have either a true or false. So that means if I'm using if now, the student would have to either have a grade of A or B, or a grade of C or D. So there's no way the students I can test for different things. So that leads us to what another logical function we call ifs. So there's if and there's ifs. So when I have multiple criteria that I want to test, the best for that is the ifs formula. The ifs formula is the best thing for me to use the moment I have multiple criteria. Okay, so using the ifs formula, let's see how that works. Equals to ifs. So you can see the syntax here is a bit different. So here it was logical test, value if true, value if false. But here that's when we did if. We had logical test, then value if true, value if false. But for ifs now, you can see what I have here is logical test 1, comma. So that means after my logical test 1, it now has value if true 1. So if I give it a logical test 1 and give it a value if true 1, it brings up logical test 2, value if true 2, logical test 3, value, and so on and so forth, until I test as many logic as I want to test. So using this now, I would say my logical test would be this score, of course, is the total we are using to determine. You can see the score here is the total we are using. So I would say if this score here is, so I'm starting from the highest. So if this score is greater than or equals to, so let me start from the highest, 70. So if this score is greater than or equals to 70, comma, that's my logical test 1. What should be the value if true here? The value if true 1 would be, remember, is also a text. So I have to put it in double quotes, open and close. So the value should be A. So I put it in double quotes, open and close, and then I hit my comma. So the moment I hit my comma, you can see there, the next syntax is up, value if true, logical test 2, and then value if true 2. So my logical test 2 would be, I'll still use the same score. So I'm using this score to test all of this logic, so that by the time I run it down, it will be able to find a category for everybody here. So using this same score again, I'll say if this score is greater than or equals to, this time I will go to the next one, which is 60, greater than or equals to 60, comma. Now, what should be the value if true 2? The value if true 2 should be that it should give this student a B. I hit my comma. Of course, it opens up logical test 3, and I still have more logic to test. So again, if this score is greater than or equals to, this time I'm moving to 50, comma. So value if true 3 should be what? So value if true 3 is I should give the person a C. I hit my comma. Logical test 4. If this score is greater than or equals to, this time I'm going with 40. 40, comma. So my value if true 4 now is going to be, these are these students. These students, so I hit my comma. Remember, these formulas are very sensitive, such that if you miss a comma anywhere or you miss anything, of course, that formula is going to be wrong. It's going to be faulty. So you must put a comma where a comma is supposed to be. You must close a bracket where a bracket is supposed to be closed, and all of that. Okay, so we've done up to B. Now we are going for logical test 5. So if this score is greater than or equals to, now we are 30, comma. So the value true here should be E. To give the student an E. So we hit our comma. Then the last one, if this score is, so I could either still say greater than or equals to 0, or since this is the last one, I could just say if it is less than, remember this other one we say greater than or equals to 30. So I could just say if this score is less than 30. So if this score is less than 30, comma, then what should be the value if true? The value if true here is I should give the student an F. Now I'm done. So all I'll do is I'll close my bracket at the end and I'll hit enter. Immediately, you can see this very person is an E student. You can see it here. This very score, this very student is an E student. So let me run it down. Let's see. You can see everybody has fallen into their place. So you can see 63, this is a B. 34, this is an E. This is an E. 65 is a B. 49 is a D. 71, A student, and so on and so forth. You can see 85, A student. So this formula is used to test multiple criteria. So when you have multiple criteria that you want to return, so this is where you use the ifs formula and not if for multiple criteria. Okay, so at this point, I think we've gotten to our first break for question. So if you have question, this is the part where I need you to raise your hand. Please do not put your question in the chat area. Raise your hand in the participant area. I will ask you to unmute so that you can ask. Please, I also want to hear our voice. Let us also communicate. So just raise your hand in the participant area and I will ask you to unmute. Okay, I have one hand raised. Okay, I have two now. Alexandra, you can unmute now.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, good evening.
Thank you. I missed the last part. How did you execute now the answers that you are running? The pass, the fail. After the ifs, how did you finish? Did you finish by enter at the end of the formula?
Yes. At
Did
the end, you press your enter.
Okay. So once you press the enter, then the logical, whatever, I don't know, what would you call it? The logical reference will come on the table.
Yes.
I missed that part.
All you're doing is you're bringing in a logic, but what you want to return is the grades. That's the values you're giving to it is what you want it to return. So the moment you press enter is the values it will return for you, not the logic you wrote. The logic you wrote was just to tell it what it should do.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Zainab, you can unmute.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I have a basic question. Under the remark, when you were using the if, I wanted to find out, I actually typed it in the comment, but it seems you didn't see it. I want to find out, you mentioned that using these formulas, they are quite sensitive. And after selecting the logical test and you are keying the values, I realized that you were using upper cases. I want to know, should you use lowercase? Will it affect the formula in a way?
No, it doesn't. Whatever value you give to it is what it will return for you. If you use lowercase, of course, it will return the answers in lowercase for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Benga, I can unmute.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. For the first one under the remark, I'm trying to be one of these. the if of past promoted. I tried the same thing, but my Excel is doing error, the same thing with the grade. So I don't know where I got it wrong.
Sorry, can you be a bit more audible so that I can hear you?
I'm saying for the if condition, for the if, the first one you did under the remark. So I did exactly the same thing you did. Immediately I pressed enter. My Excel was giving me a negative error, a negative response, an error response. So I also did the same thing with the grade. I didn't get it. So I don't know where I might have got it wrong.
Definitely something is wrong with your formula. So if Excel is giving you an error, that means something is wrong with the formula. So calm down, look at the formula again and try it again. So something is wrong. So for getting some feedback, some person says they don't have ifs. Yes, if your version is not up to, I think ifs is from 2019 or 2021. So it's exactly what I said in the first class. We'll be doing certain formulas that you will not have on those lower versions or older versions. That was the reason I said, if you know your Excel is not up to at least 2021, that you should try and upgrade it to at least 2021. And then if you can afford Office 365, that was perfect. And most of you here did not reach out to me. I've not heard from most of you, and which I know some of you want to do it. Is it the money, or you people have just decided not to reach out to me? Please, I don't have a representative in the group. If you want to reach out to me personally. Very, very important.
Hello, Mr. Eke.
Okay. So, hello, Benga.
Hello. Okay, how did you get the greater or equals to sign? Because I used the greater, then I added the equals to sign to it.
Greater than is, I have it on my keyboard. I just need to hold my shift and press it because it is the upper this thing on my keyboard. So shift and that, it gives me the greater than sign. But for the equals to, it is not the upper one, it's the plus that is upper. So I just do my greater than, then I press equals to. So that would give me a greater than or equals to.
Yes. I also have the same thing. Like I pressed greater, then I added the plus sign to it. Okay. Maybe
Just, I think what you should do, just calm down, go over the formula, possibly maybe at the end of the class too, you can watch the replay again, try it over. If you still have those sort of issues, then you can reach out to me and can look at what you're doing to know what it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Who's next? So next I have Kelvin. Kelvin, please unmute.
Okay. Good evening, all.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, just a quick one, sir. I I was observing the. Please, can you put your cursor on any of the grades so that I get the score again?
For the
I
remark
get
or
the
for the
formula.
grades?
On the grades, sir. Yes,
Okay.
I was saying something there. Okay, yes. On this, the last part there, I was following the sequence. So at the end there, you change the equals to, okay, greater than or equals to 30. Okay, I was thinking, why is it that we did not use equals to greater than 0, equals to or, sorry, greater than or equals to 0 on the last uh, statement there?
Yes, I said it here now. I said if you use greater than or equals to 0, it will still be correct.
Okay.
Yes, I said it
All
when I
right.
was doing it. It will still be correct.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, sit down. Sida, you can unmute.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, I noticed that you're only making use of the remark that 38. You're always starting from there, sir. Why is that, sir?
Because I want to do the same for every other person. So it's better I do it for the first person, reference that cell so that Excel can repeat it for every other person. So if I come and do it, let's say in the middle, what will not happen to those on top? So that's why I'm always doing it from the first, so that I know that whatever I do, when we talked about cell referencing last week, I told you, I said, Excel would always observe your movement. So because I referenced that cell in that formula, if I drag it down, Excel would move naturally, because naturally Excel moves relatively. So Excel is going to move, and wherever I reference that cell, it will jump to the next one under it, but it will still uphold all of these other part of the formula. But that place where I reference that cell, it will move to the one under, so and so on. So it's always better, if you know you want to do it for everybody, do it for the first person, and then just run it down for every other person. It will be applicable.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, Emmanuel.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Sorry, I have a little challenge with my Excel 2021. Since I did this thing, I've not been able to use it. If I'm typing, it will not go. You just tell me product activation phase. So this night I was able to touch this data under the ribbon. It told me I need to export the other file before it can be active. So I've not been able to really follow because I can't use it. I don't know whether you can help.
That's what people pay for, is the activation. So that was what we talked about, where I said anybody that needs to install or to activate should reach out to me. So you just reach out to me, but it's not free. I have to tell you ahead of time. Then I'll help you with the activation. So the person that was asking if it's an annual or monthly is a permanent subscription. So except maybe you format your system, if not, it's a permanent subscription, the one I'll do for you.
No, this one is 2021. No.
Yes, I know.
So it has to still be
Uh,
okay, no problem. Thank you. I got
the way Microsoft works, they have that package is called Office, is the full Office package. So it's not just Excel. It comes with
I know,
Microsoft,
but the word is working. The word is not having problem. It's only this Excel.
but it's showing you that you're using an unlicensed product, right?
No, it's not.
So what's
What I
the
mean is that the problem with this Excel, I can't use it. But the word, I can use it, I can type. So the problem is my previous file from the other Excel needs to be moved so that it will, I don't know how to explain it. So this one now, there was one place I touched, it told me that I need to export those files by clicking something, I can't remember.
I
So
think
I just know it's
I
just
think
like a setting sort
I think
of.
the best thing there is maybe when I'm chance tomorrow, reach out to me. I'll just look at it. You join with your system, share your screen. Let me just see. Then maybe I'll know what the issue is.
Okay.
But first of all,
Thank you.
you go and check and be sure the product is activated. If the product is activated, then that means it's a different issue. But if not, there is a licensing issue.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, David. David, you can unmute.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, now these are concern now about course and grades, where you've said 30 is when the value is 30 is equal to 30 or greater than 30, then the grade is E. I'm kind of thinking 69 is also greater than 30. Why can't everything else be E?
Okay. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank you very much for that question. So now, one rule that the IFs formula have is that, okay, let me come in here, equals to ifs. So you can see it says it checks. Now I'm trying to give you the function of it. It checks whether one or more conditions are met and returns a value corresponding to the first true condition. A value corresponding to the first true condition. That means whatever value is corresponding to that first true condition can. So let me just explain it this way. If the first true value I have said greater than or equals to 70, the next one, even if I say greater than or equals to 60, it will never go beyond where the other value is. So there is that this thing in the formula such that that first one in front of it is always there. So it will never go beyond that. So because I have greater than or equals to 70, and the next one I'm saying greater than or equals to 60, that 60 will automatically know that there is 70 in front. That means whatever I'm doing ends at 69. And if I'm saying the next one again, greater than or equals to 50, and it sees 60 in front, of course, it knows that there's 60 in front. So whatever I'm doing ends at 59. So that is how the formula is built.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay, Jude. Jude, you can unmute.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Ike. Thank you for your time and for everything you've done. Somebody asked a question in class about why you use the less than sign to treat 0 to 29. And we were saying that we could also do, the person was asking, why didn't you do greater than or equals to 0? I didn't quite get the answer you gave to him, but greater than or equal to 0. I'm thinking that all numbers will be greater than 0. How would that work? I thought that was why you used the less than 30 to be able to capture the figures between 0 and 29. If you can go through that again for clearer understanding. Thank you.
Okay. So this also is just the rule I just explained before yours. So if I say greater than or equals to 0, in as much as I already have one in front of it that I said greater than or equals to 30, so that 0 will not go beyond 29 because I already have another one in front that I said greater than or equals to 30. So even if I say greater than or equals to 0 for the last one, it will still work very well. That rule applies. It will never go beyond the first corresponding value. So any value in front of it, it will never go beyond that. So, but I just decided to use less than 30 because that was the last one. So instead of having to, I just said, okay, anything now that is not up to this 30, just give them F. So that's me trying to maybe shorten the formula or shorten the logic. But what I'm trying to say is, even if I use greater than or equals to 0, it's still going to be very correct.
Yeah, thank you very much. I understand you now, and it's good that you came up with this so that we can know the varieties that are possible. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Alexandra, I thought I've taken your question. Why am I still seeing your hand? Let me take from others first. Please, can we be a bit fast? We don't have time. Samson, you can unmute.
Saiki, I'm enjoying your class. You are flowing very well. Yeah, yes. The question I just want to ask is what you have explained now. That since we have written the grade is there from A to F. So is it possible for we to just use greater than or equal to, all true. If we do that, are we still going to get our results?
Yes, of course. That's what I said now. The only place I did not use greater than or equals to is the 0 now. That's for the last one, the F.
Okay.
So even if I use it there, it will still is correct or true. So the formula does not have a place where I must actually give any false this thing. So all of it are all true values. So that's what you should know. The moment I give the logic, the next thing is asking me for is the true value. There's no space for false.
Okay. Because as you are doing it, I'm also following you and practicing it right in life. And I'm getting results.
Okay, okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Austined, you can unmute. Austined, are you ready for us? Okay, Alfred, you can unmute. Oasis Austined.
Okay, my question is on the same, Alfred. Hello?
Yeah, you said your question is on?
It's on the same, So can you change the format of the formula such that you start from F? The last, if it is less than 30, can you start from less than 0 or less than 30, then go up?
Yes, of
Will
course.
will it give the same results?
Yes, you can start from anywhere. You can start from the lowest. So you just need to understand your logic in that sense if you're starting from the lowest. Because if I'm starting from the lowest, then of course my logic would change. So the logic will not be the same. So if you understand how to write the logic, it doesn't matter if you're starting from the lowest or in short, maybe after this, I will do an example where I would start from the lowest so that we all can see. Okay, how am I still having so many hands now? Hands are supposed to have reduced. Ato. Ato, are you there? Okay, Latifat.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, Ato, go ahead.
Please, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, I couldn't join last week, and then I've been able to watch the video too. But while I was watching, there was one question that keep on coming to mind, and I want to ask. If a business have a business logo, and then they want you to lock it, like you create an official sheet, Excel sheet for them, and then you use the logo on the sheet, lock it on the sheet. How do you go about that? Because when I saw the locking of sheet and all that, I thought it would be important. I don't know whether it's also a different topic on its own.
So there's basically nothing you cannot do with Excel because you can copy things and paste in Excel. Of course, that means anything is possible. So if I have the logo, of course, the logo has been designed. I just need to copy it and bring it into Excel, then do all the necessary formatting and place it where I want to place. And so it's very possible.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought it would be done last week, like when you were teaching that part. So I thought it would be done. That's why I didn't see anything like that. That's why.
Okay, no.
If you can take us through that process,
So
I don't know.
all of the office packages, they all have their uniqueness. So depending on what you want to do, if I want to create a slide for presentation, I can't be going to Microsoft to go and do that. Microsoft Word. I'll know that I need PowerPoint for that. If I want to perform basic calculations, I know I need Excel for that. And if I want to type and do other, I knew I need Microsoft Word. So they are all distinct and different. But yet, there are things you can always use interchangeably. Even on Word, we can prepare a sample of an Excel listing and copy it and put on my Word listing. The same with PowerPoint and all of that, but you just need to know how to go about that. So, but that is not our concern in this class.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, Latifat, you can unmute now.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. Please, can you be a bit more audible?
Hello?
Yeah, good evening.
Okay. Okay, so please, my question is, when you use the if logic that you used, can it just be used for two things? Like, is it if, like, you use promoted and repeat, just that? Like, can we use this for about three conditions? I don't know if you get my question. Like, can we say promoted, repeat, and probably probation or something? Like, if it's not just two conditions, can we have more than two conditions for if logic?
Okay, so the if function has a true or false. So it's either white or black. But if you now want to use it in that manner to test more than one condition or two, you want to use it, for example, use it to do this grading that we did. That's what we now call nested if. So we call that one nested if. So nested if, you remember the ifs formula is quite recent. So I think they added the ifs formula from, I think, maybe 2019 or 2021 version. So before then, people had that issue of, okay, I want to do grading for different category, or I want to. So there was always that issue. So people learned there was a way you could use if to do that without having to use ifs. So that's what we call nested if. So we call it nested if. I think that's the next thing we'll be doing. So after this, so we'll do nested if. You see how you can use if to do that. But we call that nested if, not if. Okay. Last but not the least, Israel John. Israel, fast one. Okay, Israel, like you're not ready for us. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to class. Okay, so for the person that asked about how...
Hello. Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Hello, are you hearing me? Good evening, sir. Israel on the line, sir. Good evening, class. So mine is a question, really. But before that question, I want to plead with you. I'm interested in having a Office 365, which you say we should form you through your DM. But before this time, my system has been giving me a problem, and I took it to a system software engineer who will be able to rectify the problem. But because of other things, I had to send my engineer to go and see how far, then pick it back so I can install the software. So, but in the process, last 3 days ago, he had an accident while he was going to get that laptop from me. He had an accident and 5 persons were lost in that car. Thank God he didn't die. He survived, but he had bruises. He's in the hospital now. So it's making my issue difficult because now even the laptop he was bringing back, when that didn't happen, everything got lost. You can't identify or get it again. So I need to get a new laptop and then continue. So even the training this night, I'm just using my phone to study along. So I'm pleading with you that I'll make effort to get a new laptop so that I can have that. That's for that. Then the question is, we have a if statement, and then we have another if statement again. These are two if statements. It's a conditional statement. Now, in the first one, you have applied it in a one situation that either this or this. And this one, you are having three conditions or more than that. So my question is, if in what is it only in conditions where you have multiple in a situation where you have multiple conditions? Does it mean that the first if cannot do it except we apply this second condition, which has to do with multiple conditions? Are they not the same if statement? Sorry, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. So the thing there is, I already said it here. I said there's an alternative to if. So you can either use if or you can nest the if. That's what we now refer to as nested if. But now the nested if, when we do it, you see how it is. So it was still a very, let's say, the process is long and the whole thing is, if you're not careful, you mix everything up. So ifs is very simple. When we do it, we'll understand better. But for you to have this and have this, then you should know that definitely they have different roles that they are playing. So if I'm doing something that I just need either you belong here or here, then if would do that for me. But if I'm working on a scenario where I need people in different categories, then of course I know I need to make use of ifs for that. So that is that. Okay, let's go back. So the first one we'll be doing here is this part where I said we want to take this thing from, so let's take it from the lowest value. So equals to, you say ifs here now, the logical test. Now we are starting from the lowest value. So if this score is greater than, so because we are starting from the lowest value, what do we think we do? So now I can't be using greater than because I'm starting from there. So rather what will happen would be, now what I'll be doing is I'll be using the less than. So if this score is less than or equals to, so, and I can't be using 0 here because I'm using less than, that means I'll be starting from the highest part of that boundary, the highest part of the boundary, which in this case is 29. So if this score is less than or equals to 29, comma, so what should it give me here? It should give me F, comma, then if this is less than or equals to, this time, what am I going with? 39. What should it give me? It should give me E, comma, and if this is less than or equals to, remember it's not compulsory, you must put your equals to. So I could just say less than, like in this case now, since I'm saying less than or equals to 29, this first one, I could just say if it is less than 30. So less than 30, of course, will capture 29 for me. So it's not compulsory, you must put the equal, greater than or equals to, or less than or equals to. So it's just I want to pick those numbers exactly so that I'll know my boundary. Okay, so the next one here will be 49, comma, and that will be my D, comma. Then if this is less than or equals to, next one will be 59, comma, and that will be our C, comma. So if this is less than or equals to, next one now is what? 69, comma. So this is going to be our B, comma. And then if this is less than or equals to 100, which is the highest. So, comma, this of course is going to be our A. So after this, I close. So if I hit my enter, you can see the same result. Whether I'm starting from the highest or I'm starting from the lowest, it's still going to be the same result, as you can see. Nothing changes about that result because the logic still stays the same. Okay, so I said the next one will be doing is going to be nested if. So let's see what's nested if. Nested if. Okay. So the nested if statement allows you to evaluate multiple conditions sequentially, providing a more complex decision-making process within your spreadsheet. So they allow for more nuanced and detailed results by handling various scenarios with specific outcome. So remember what I said about nested if when I said it's still going to give you the same answer ifs will give you, just that here. So if I'm using nested if, there's no formula called nested if. It's you using if, but you're nesting it. So that's how that name comes about, nested if. So I'm going to be using that if. But remember, if has only true or false. So in this case, if I'm using nested if, what I'll be doing would be, I'll test my logic. So if this score, let me say I'm starting from the highest, is greater than or equals to 70, comma. Of course, I'll give it the value if true. The value if true is A. But now I will not give it value if false. So after the value if true, which is my A, I'll put my comma. Instead of giving it value if false, I will bring another if again, another if formula. You can see another if again. So this time, what am I going to do? This same, I'll use it to test again. So if this is greater than or equals to, this time I move to the next one, which is 60, comma. So the value if true should be a B. I hit my comma, another if. So that's just it. I keep bringing up if every single time to use it and keep testing. Or equals to this time, moving to 50, comma. So the value if true here is, should give me a C. So instead of value if false, I would always bring up if again. So if this score greater than or equals to, this time I'm going with 40, comma. So the value if true there is a D. It's my comma. If again, this score is greater than or equals to, this time what am I going with 30, comma. The value if true there is I should give me an E. Close this, it's my comma. And then for the last one, so this one now, I have false value. So I could just, this last one, make it the false value. But so that I don't confuse us, let me just still bring it the if and continue. So if this is greater than or equals to, this time, what am I looking for? 0, comma, it should give me F. Okay. So after this now, I close my bracket. But now there's a rule to this. I close my bracket. If I press enter, it's going to tell me error because there's something wrong. So for nested if, after you've done all of this, you need to count how many times you opened if and make sure you close your brackets for the same number of times that if was open. So how many if did we open? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we opened if 6 times. So that means we need to close this bracket 6 times for it to work. So we've closed 1, now close 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure you close the bracket for the same number of times that if was opened, and then you press enter. So you can see the formula now is correct. And if I run this down, you can still see it works. So with this now, you can see that the ifs formula is much, much, much simple. I believe everybody can testify to that the if formula is much simpler. Okay. So let's move on. The next thing we'll be doing is so let's go back to our course outline. Let's see. Okay, so we have absolute cell reference, relative cell reference, and mixed cell reference. Okay. So what absolute cell reference means, or what cell referencing means, is we use cell reference to show Excel how it should move. Remember, I've told us here that Excel, okay, maybe, yeah, I said it. Excel by default or naturally moves relatively. So relative cell reference, everybody should note this, is the default movement of Excel. When I say default movement, Excel moves vertically and horizontally. So if Excel sees me moving vertically, it makes its own movement too vertically. If Excel sees me moving horizontally, it makes its own movement too horizontally. This is what I mean. So if I should maybe come here, I say equals to, and I'll say this plus this, and I press enter. Excel has seen that movement, that all I did here was to add the content of E3 plus the content of F3, and it gave me that. So the next thing Excel would do, if I ask Excel to repeat this for others, is that the first one I added E3 plus F3. So naturally, Excel will just move down and do E4 plus F4. And that's just how it's going to continue that movement. So let's see. So let's say I tell it to do it up to this point. You can see, yeah, at this point is E3 plus F3. If I move to the next point, you can see that movement has gone downward, because that was just what Excel saw me do. And then if I move here, you can also see the movement keeps moving like that, following that pattern that Excel saw me using. So what now happens in a case where maybe the movement went this way? Let's say equals to, and I'll say this plus this, and I press enter. So let's see. This is E6 plus F3. What do you think the next one would be if I ask Excel to repeat this same movement this way, downward for me? Of course, what Excel is going to do for me is going to be for it to continue that movement in that manner. Let's see. Okay, so here was E6 plus F3. So what do you think the next one is going to be? Of course, it will be E7 plus F4. Let's see. You can see E7 plus F4, that movement, because Excel saw the number of jumps are. So relatively, that is Excel for you. If it sees you moving this way, it moves that way if you ask it to move that way. And if it sees you moving this way, it also moves that way if you ask it to. So that's what we mean by relative cell movement. Now, for absolute cell movement, it's me wanting Excel to move, but I don't want it moving relatively. What I want it moving is moving in such a way that it is responding to the content of a particular cell. For example, let's say the student wrote these exams and they didn't pass. The failure was maybe massive. I decided to add 10 marks to everybody. So let's call this, I want to call this new total. Okay. New total. So I want to add 10 marks to everybody and get this new total. Then these 10 marks that I want to add, maybe I come down here and I write 10 in this cell. This is the 10 marks I want to add for everybody. Then I now come here and I say equals to, please Excel add whatever is here plus this 10 for me. And then I press enter. Of course, Excel has added 10 marks to this score. This is the new total. But now I cannot run this down. Let's see, let me stop at this point. Let's see. You can see that for all of these other ones, Excel is repeating the same answers that are here. So there's a movement this way, but there's nothing added to it. Why is that so? Let's see. So because if I click here, you can see it's this plus this. That's M18 plus I3 that has given me the answer. But if I come here now, see what happens. Excel is moving relatively. So you can see Excel has picked this, and here it has gone down to this point. And now it cannot find anything here. That's why it did not add that 10 marks to that next person. If I come down here, and let's say I type in 10 here, you see that immediately it will update that score for the next person. You will see. Have you seen? It has added that 10 now to this second person because it has now seen something under it. But now I don't want to keep writing 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 down for everybody. So how can I make it such a way that with adding just this to this, Excel will do the same thing for everybody? So that is where we say we make a cell absolute. That's the absolute cell reference we are talking about. So how do I do something like that? Equals to this plus this. But in this case now, after I've pressed my OK, I've gotten the answer. Or even before pressing my OK, what I'll do is I'll come to this cell where I have this 10, and I'll make sure this cell is absolute. So that whenever Excel is moving relatively this way, here it should not move relatively. It should only move relatively here, adding it to only what is here. So I will make this cell absolute. And how do you make a cell absolute? By locking the cell. And you lock a cell by locking the column. So this is the column, this is column M. So I'll lock M, and then I'll come in here and I'll also lock 18. So what has happened there is I've locked this cell by locking M and 18. Is this cell I've locked. Remember, if I lock only M and leave to lock this 18, I have not locked that cell. Rather, what I've done is I've locked column M, but not cell M18. Please, these are different things. So this is one way you can lock, using the $ before the column and the row. You've locked that cell. Another way you can do it, if your keyboard is like my own, is I could just bring my cursor around here, and then I just press F4. If I press F4 on my keyboard, it does the locking both ways at the same time for me. Okay, so now if I press enter, like as you can see, this is 48. And if I should now run this down for everybody, you would see that Excel is going to automatically add that 10 marks to everybody across board. Why? Because now as it is moving, let's see, here at this point, if I click, you can see this plus this gave me that answer. If I move down here and I double click to see, you can see it is here is moving relatively, but you can see that here it is still the same cell. This cell is not moving. This cell is absolute. And if I move down, even if I come down here to check, you can see it's still the same thing. That cell is absolute. There is nothing moving. There is no movement there. So I want to believe we are all following. Are we all following? So I want to believe we are all fine at this point. Okay, let's move on. Okay. So the next thing is we've talked about relative cell movement. We've talked about absolute cell movement. Now let's talk about the last one, which is the mixed cell movement, mixed cell reference. So when you're using the mixed cell referencing, you're trying to tell Excel to move in a particular way. You're telling Excel move in this direction and this direction. You're mixing two different directions, possibly. But now, it has nothing to do with you locking a cell. Please, let's take note. In the mixed cell reference, you're not locking a cell. Rather, you're locking maybe a column and a row. But it has nothing to do with cell. When you're locking a cell, then that is absolute cell referencing because you're making a cell absolute. But in mix, you're concerned about the column and the row because there's a particular pattern of movement you need. So example I would do would be to use this multiplication table. Let's do a multiplication table. Let me say I have 1 here. I have 2. Let me just take this to this point. So let's just say we have 1 to 20. So let's do the same here. So, okay, on this part, let me use, let's still use 1. So I have 1. Let's still use it that way. Okay, 1 to 20, 1 to 20. So we all know that to create a multiplication table, what you need to do is to make sure that whatever is here is multiplied by what is here. So for example, I'll say equals to multiply this times this. This is how I'm going to get the answer here. So 1 times 1, if I press enter, of course, is 1. And now, normally, if I should run this down, what Excel is going to do here is Excel is moving relatively. Because Excel saw me do 1 times 1. For the next cell, what did Excel do? Excel now did 2 times 1. And of course, that gave us this 2 here. But for this place, what did it do? Excel now did 3 times 2. So Excel is moving relatively. And this is not the type of movement I want because you can see at every point, it is just moving relatively. So this will never give me a multiplication table. Rather, the kind of movement I want is one that I want only the things that are here to be multiplied by what is up here. That is the only way this multiplication table would work. So what do? I come back to this formula. I want everything here locked down, constant. So what is this place? This is column A. So I'll go to this formula, look for where I have column A, and I'll put my lock there. Now, I also want everything up here to be constant so that whatever is here can always be multiplied by what is up here. There should be no movement or nothing inside here that concerns this. Rather, it should only be what is here and what is here. So now I've locked everything in A. I want to lock everything in row 1. Remember, this is column A. And now I want to lock everything in this row 1, which is this top row. So what do? I go to my formula, and I also look for where 1 is and put my lock sign there. So now if I press enter, of course, 1 times 1 is still 1. But the difference is if I run this down now, you can see. So at every point, it is, let me click here, you see. It is what is here multiplied by what is here. if I'm here, it is, okay. So if I'm here, it's going to be what is here multiplied by what at every point. It has no business with what is here. It only has business with multiplying what is here by what is up and returning the value for me. So if I should also drag this way, you can see there, it's also working. And you can see it will also fill it in at every place. So at every point here, because of this formula ID, is only what is on this part that is multiplied by what is on this other part. So for example, I come here and I click here. Let's see. So you can see for the answer I got here, it is what is on the row multiplied by what is up here on the column. You can see. So that is how you get a multiplication. So this kind of referencing is what we call mixed cell referencing, where you're locking a particular row and you're locking a particular column, but you're not locking a cell. You have no business with what is inside of any cell. It's just the column you're interested in and the row you're interested in, so that you can tell Excel to move in a certain way, in a certain manner. Okay. So I want to believe this is also clear. Any confusion, any question? So I want to know if, I don't think we still have time to start another, let me see, let's check our, okay, the next thing we have here is statistical function. Okay, I think we should take questions and call it a day here. Tomorrow we'll start the statistical functions. So let's take questions. Okay, Bossede can unmute.
I want to say good evening. Thank you for the good job.
You're welcome.
You're doing. Thank you. Please, I want to know how to lock a cell or people.
How to lock a
What do you have to what you have to press to lock a row or cell or column?
So basically, every time you do anything, it always reflects. If I click here now, this is cell H what? What cell is this? This is H4. This is cell H4. So, okay, let me even do something here. Well, let's come back here. I think it will be a bit, no, this is full. Let's say I click on this. I click on this. This is the combination of cell E7, F7, G7, and H7. So there's always a cell reference or a cell address. And that cell address carries the column and the row. The column and the row. So if I click here now, for example, let me click here. Immediately, this cell I've clicked on is cell O18. That's because this is column O and row 18. That is what has given this cell O18. So assuming I do anything here in this cell, if I want to lock it, if it's in the formula and I want to lock it, the only way I can lock this cell is to make sure that O, which is the column address, is locked, and that 18, which is the row address, is also locked. That means I have locked this cell. If I put my lock before O and before 18, then this cell has been locked. That is how you lock a cell. But if I put my lock before O and then I did not put it before 18, what that means is I have locked everything in this column O, not the cell. And if I come and I put my lock before 18, and not O. What that means is I've locked everything where this row 18 is, but not column O. So that's the difference between locking a cell and locking a column or row. So a cell, you lock both the column and the row together. That's the address. You lock both. That means you've locked that cell. But if I'm locking just the column or locking just the row, then I'm not locking a cell. I'm locking a column and a row. That's because there's a particular pattern of movement that I want. I don't want Excel moving relatively. Okay. Boss, did I answer your question?
Partially.
Partially.
What do you press to lock it?
You said what?
What key do you press to lock?
Okay. Was that your question?
Yes.
The key is on now. Laptops have different keys, so keys varies. But on my own, it is I hold Shift and press 4. So you see the $ on top of your 4. So is that $ you use in locking? So I hold Shift and press 4 on my keyboard. So the $ is on top of 4. So that's why I hold down Shift to press the 4.
Thank you.
Then I also said if it's the cell I want to lock, I just want it to lock everything. Then I could just make sure I take my cursor to what I want to lock, and then just press F4. If you press F4, that's on my own keyboard. I don't know of your own, but in my own F4 will just lock the cell for me. Okay.
Thank you.
Godwin, you can unmute. Hello, Godwin.
Can you hear me, please?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you very much for the class. Please, I just have one question, just a question. Can you please share this manual that you are using to us? Like, can we have access to it?
Sorry, which manual is that? Is it this data set?
Yeah, the manual you are following, like the manual you are using to
When you
teach
say
us.
manual, I'm a bit confused because I've not seen any manual. Is it this data set currently showing here?
No, I mean that stuff that you are following, that you are using to define some of the term.
Okay, the slide.
Yeah, the slide. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, but usually I don't like sharing my slides. Those are personal. I just feel like the slides, there's nothing much there. So if you want to, you can just, when you're watching the replay, you can just pause it and write it out if you need to note things from it. So, but okay, no problem. Maybe I will share.
All right, I will really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Alexandra. Okay, no, Daniel. Daniel can unmute.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Thanks very much for the insight you've given to some of us. Just a follow-up question to what my sister asked. When you are locking the number, I learned that you press Shift F4. But when it comes to, assume I want to lock only a row. Is it the same Shift F4?
No, you can't use F4 if it's just a row or a column you want to lock. You must use the $ because you're locking just one. Or you use
only one.
Or you can use the F4, then you go and delete the part you don't want.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, Alexandra. Alexandra, you can unmute.
Yeah, so I want to know, like on the other keyboards, what would be the likely key to press if you have experience with other keyboards?
No,
Or am I going to test?
I only have experience of my own keyboard. I don't know what other keyboards would be.
But you've used different keyboards.
No, I've not used different. It's my own I've been using. The one
Okay, so
the system
we'll
I've
just
used,
be
the system I've used before this still had this same type of keyboard. So I'm used to this one.
so I have to chance to know which one would lock for me.
Yeah, you need to try them one after the other, you find it. But it's somewhere there.
Okay.
Okay, Austin, Oasis Austin. I hope this time I'll hear you.
All right. Good evening. Sorry about earlier. My other phone distracted me. Okay. I just want to ask a question based on the first part of today's lessons. Yeah. So I was trying to confirm: is there a way, while using our if function, if we could just use the scores and the grade, that's reference the cells where we have the scores and the grade instead of typing out the whole function?
No. You can't reference it because except if there's no way you can reference it. You can't, not in that formula. So you can actually use in this very scenario, you cannot. So it's only there. This thing I did there was just to guide me to know what I'm working with. But in that formula, there's no way I can reference the cell where I wrote those scores and grades. It will not work.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Meletus.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think you were the first person to submit assignment 1. That's cool.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Please, I was lost on that multiplication table formula. How to log row and column.
Okay.
I just need to see the formula, please, just to see it.
No problem. So I'll do it all over again so that
thank you
can all see. Okay. So what did we even do? Okay. Let me just use here. So the thing about Excel is you must always understand the logic of whatever formula you're using first. So like in this case, I'm doing a multiplication table. Okay, this time let me even make these sides in twos. Let me keep these at 40. Then let me make these sides in threes. Let me put this out. Let's use let me just keep it here, 42. Okay, so basically, I know that for this formula to work, or this multiplication table to work, now I'm using a multiplication table just for us to have an understanding of what I'm doing. Of course, later in our class, we'll be doing other kind of data analysis where we'll be analyzing data and we'll see how useful this mixed cell referencing is. So this is just a basic way of explaining it. I'll show us how you can now infuse it into things you do such that it makes your work very easy for you. But you need to know what you're locking per time. So here I'm saying equals to, I'm doing a multiplication table. So I'm saying for this multiplication table to work, it has to be what is here multiplied by what is here, irrespective of the position. So if I'm here and I'm looking for an answer here, that means it has to be what is up here multiplied by whatever is on this other part. That is the only way this multiplication table would work. So I said, for that to happen, okay, now let's even say I pick the one up first. this times this. Of course, it's still the same thing. And I press enter. So if I come and I try to run this down, Excel is going to move relatively. You can see it there. So that is not what I want. Rather, what do I want? I want Excel to move only this way and only this way. And for that to happen, that means I need to make sure this column is locked down, and I need to make sure this whole row is locked down so that everything up here is constant and everything on this column is also constant. It's not changing. It is being used to multiply whatever is up here because that's the example I've done here and I've shown to Excel. But I want it constant. So for that to happen, I'll say equals to this multiplied by this. So now what am I locking here? Okay, somebody should tell me what and what I need to lock and show me where I need to lock it. I don't think we have time. Let me just go ahead. So now what I need to lock here is I need everything in column A locked. So you can see now because I started here and here, see where my A is. So, but I need to look for where this column A is in this formula and make sure I lock it. So what do? I come here. This is where I have column A and I'll put my $sign there. Then I also want to make sure this row 1, everything in this row 1 is locked. So what do? I look for where row 1 is in this formula, which is here. You can see this is B1, but I'm not interested in B1 as a cell. What I'm interested in is the row. So I'm going to just go and look for the row, which is row 1, and put my $sign there. Now I have locked the whole of this row, and I've locked the whole of this column. So if I should say enter now, of course, 2 times 3 is 6. And if I should run this down, you can see it's going to do the same thing. So at this point, this is 40. This is 40 times 3 that give us 120. You can see 40 times 3 that give us 120. And now I also want to take this way for it to repeat the same thing and take this way. So it is able to do this because I have already told it everything up here, please let it stay constant. And everything on this column A, please let it stay constant. After I've said let it stay constant, I now show it how, where, from which cell to which cell I want to be adding. And Excel is just following that format. But because of the mixed cell referencing now, it is knowing that, oh, everything in this top row is what I should concentrate on. And everything in this first column is what I should concentrate on. It's as simple as that. So I hope it's clear now. I think some of us will might need to practice it a couple of times, possibly with different these things, before maybe we'll get it. But it's not hard, it's very simple. And it's also very useful. So you need to understand it very well. Okay, so with that, I think we've come to the end of today's class. Please let us all make sure we join in tomorrow and we join in on time so that we can cover much more ground. And if you're still yet to do your installation or activation, please reach out to me personally. Please, if you don't have my number, you can ask your course mates in the group. Somebody will help you drop the number for you. Please reach out to me. Directly. Thank you very much. And do all have a wonderful night rest until we meet again tomorrow. So the recording, I'll drop it in the group today. Good night all.